I'm Vympel from a town in the highlands of Jalisco, and when I was about 18 years old, I was really set on joining the Navy. It was a dream I had since I was a kid, but it was also something my dad always talked about. At the very least, one of his sons had to end up in the Navy or the Mexican Army, and another as a veterinarian, because he worked with livestock his whole life. Around February 2016, I started looking into what was needed to join the Navy, where I had to go and all that. But honestly, making that trip was complicated for me, so I kept putting it off. I also took the entrance exam for veterinary medicine.
Más por probar que otra cosa.
And in the end, out of the 14 classmates from my town who went, I was the only one who got into the university. In August of that same year, I went to Tepetitlan de Morelos to start my studies. I arrived with the little I had. I had saved up, I settled in where I was going to live, and a few days later I started looking for a job. Because honestly, I didn't want to be a burden to my parents. The financial situation wasn't easy. I was lucky and ended up working in a seedy bar. The boss and my coworkers were great people, really good folks, but the customers, they were something else. It was always troublemakers who, once drunk, would get fired up over anything, causing fights, arguments, and that tense atmosphere. The semesters went by and I kept working there on weekends. I'd already gotten used to the kind of people and the life at that place. I even got to know a big shot from the area, one of those guys with power, but if you don't get involved in their business, they treat you well. To this day, I consider him a good friend, but there was one night I can't forget. It was a Saturday in February 2019. We were on the evening shift. There were 4 of us working, 3 men including myself and a female coworker. The bar was empty, everything was calm, with rock playing, no trouble. Suddenly, several guys started coming in and sat at a table in the back. The girl went to serve them, and they asked for corridos, so we played them. Everything was fine until the atmosphere felt weird. Then a blonde guy, about 5'7" tall, well-built, comes up to me at the bar and starts asking me for some specific corridos. Honestly, I didn't even like them, but besides, they were dedicated to Señor de los Gallos. We looked at each other as if to say,
This will cause trouble, you'll see.
I told him I hadn't downloaded them yet, but if he waited, I'd do it. Still, he took it badly. He started yelling at me, demanding them right then, saying that things were done his way, and honestly, I got pissed off. I firmly told him I was in charge of the bar, that rules would be followed whether he liked it or not. The guy challenged me to a fight. Fired up by the situation, I was about to step out from behind the bar to put him in his place. It wasn't the first time that, as an employee, I had to step in like that, but my coworker behind the bar, who was from that city, stopped me right away and said,
No, wait, this guy's one of their people.
That name he mentioned was the local plaza boss, a member of the 4 letters. We already knew who he was, we had seen him before, and honestly, he wasn't a good person. I told my buddy I didn't care who it was, they weren't going to mess with me. He supported me but stopped me from doing anything foolish. Minutes went by and the discomfort started to rise. We were considering kicking them out and playing just rock and metal when the same scout walked in again. We glanced at each other as if to say, that's when I really felt my heart in my throat. The situation wasn't so simple anymore, especially for me, since I'd already had a direct problem with one of them. I just stayed at the bar, pretending to mind my own business. But out of the corner of my eye, I kept watching the guy I had the problem with. I was also keeping an eye on the door, just in case I had to run out if things got ugly. My coworker was serving them but kept returning, increasingly uncomfortable. One of them asked her to stay with him and she refused. She was very pretty and in great shape from going to the gym, so we moved her to the bar and we took over. Among us, we were already clear. If this got out of control, to hell with it. We'd leave the bar, and whatever was left behind would stay behind. We weren't going to get into trouble with those people, and it didn't take long for it to happen. A fight broke out among them. They started throwing chairs, glasses. It was pure chaos, and in the middle of all that noise, a thunderous sound was heard. That sound you can't mistake. We went into the storage room without thinking. Honestly, we didn't come out until about 10 minutes later, and when we did, there were fewer of them left. Fortunately, they were the only customers. The last one to leave was the guy I had the problem with. He came over, asked me how much it was, I gave him the bill, and he paid me, staring at me defiantly the whole time. I decided not to look at him because I didn't feel tough enough to take him on at that moment. Everyone left. We went outside to get some air to process everything that had happened. Afterwards, we went back to pick up the stuff and found all kinds of things: open bags of drugs, incomplete packs of cigarettes, broken bottles, and the spent shell casing. Hours later, the boss arrived. We told him everything. He checked the cameras, and he called the big shot I mentioned to you at the beginning. He showed him everything, and that guy made some calls. I don't know to whom or how, but after that, none of those guys ever came back. Only the local cartel boss came back once or twice more. Just in and out. After that situation, honestly, we never lost the habit of standing up to customers or stepping in when there were fights. But we already knew that those calls had been key to having that place watched. Today marks 5 years since I graduated and started working in the field my dad and I wanted, even though he's no longer here. I live in another city far from that environment, with a peaceful life full of work. But I can't forget that night, because sometimes you realize that no matter how brave you are, there are places where you don't know who you're dealing with.